Wanted to talk a little bit today about warriors, real warriors, and the need for them, civilization's need for them. Civilization will not endure without a fighting force to protect them, defend them, the same thing, and intimidate others who would consider attacking. Uh, Without a warrior force with the ability to project and to do what is necessary, I think George Orwell said something like, we sleep sound in our beds at night because there are rough men out there doing rough things so that we can. So that's a paraphrase, but it was something like that. And it appears that a lot of people think that what we have right now in Western civilization, the United States in particular, is just here because we wanted it to be here. And we've spent a lot of time denigrating the idea of a fighter, trying to put down that attitude. I think now they call it like toxic masculinity. But and I remember I played football. My son did. My grandsons did and do. And I think it's a great sport. And at one time when my son was playing in middle school, there was a big to-do about softening up the rules and whatnot because it was really very warlike. And yeah, it is. And it prepares you, it really does, to work together, which you have to do as a fighting force. It's not like in the movies where everything's all individualized. But every society that continues for a while has that. Plato in his idealized society in the Republic had a warrior class that took care to make sure that the guardians and the everyday people would be able to do what they needed to do. The Hindus in their class system have a warrior class which is second only to the Brahmins. And it is there. I believe they're called the Kushasters. Somebody can correct me on that. But the Chinese had a warrior class. The Romans, of course, the whole society for a while was on that basis. In the Middle Ages, you had the feudal system, which was built to protect, and then they abused the system, but to protect the farmers and so forth and so on. The Vikings were a warrior society that grew and expanded and then settled down. And the Normans were actually descendants of Vikings, and they were a huge influence on the Middle Ages and so forth. So the United States projected itself across a continent. So you have societies, and I believe Will Durant, the historian, said something like, those civilizations endure and grow that are the most efficient at killing. And I guess that's a terrible thing to say in one respect, but on the other hand, there are always people who don't or who are not going to like you. No matter what you do or say, it is not going to be good enough, and they want what you have or what they think you have, and you have to meet force with force. And you can only do that with a dedicated group of men who are capable of going out and doing great damage. And they do it for the society. And the society rewards them for that. And they are part of that. Now, in our country, we've had a military that has been subject to the civilian control our entire history. And our first president and the writers of the Constitution wanted to make sure of that. And that's pretty much endured throughout the history. Abraham Lincoln got rid of George McClellan, who was a very good organizer and a good politician, a terrible fighter, but he was threatening the presidency, basically. So he got rid of him and put in someone who could and would fight, or went through several before he got to Grant. But George Marshall during World War II, phenomenal organizer in general, and did not agree with some of the things Roosevelt said, but he stood at attention, saluted, and moved ahead and did it. And now we have a voluntary warrior society, which is coming from a smaller and smaller group of the population, and we have the upper end of that society who basically is trying to soften that ability. We haven't won anything in decades, and we've rewarded the losers with rank and money and everything else, and we've continued, in our media especially, to look at the idea of fighting as a bad thing, and fighting is a bad thing if you use it to do terrible things to people. But well, let me back up on that. War is always doing terrible things to people. I mean, a group I admire, and I could probably get slapped for this, are the Comanche Nation, who dominated the South Plains of the United States, or what's now the United States. They defeated the French, they defeated the Spanish, they defeated the Mexicans. I mean, Mexico claimed Texas, but they didn't control Texas. The Comanche did. And the Comanche subdued every other Indian tribe in the South Plains to their will. They drove the Apache, that's how bad they were, out of Texas. So, and then the Sioux, or the Lakota, whatever we'll call, they had been driven out of one part of what we now call the United States and occupied what they now call their homeland. But they hadn't been there all that long, but they drove other tribes out. So, contrary to the movies, the Indian nations were not peaceful. They were very warlike. They were warrior societies, and they had to be. Now, would I love it if we could all live in peace, get along together? As I've said in previous videos, I try to be a Christian, and that advocates that way of living. But Christians have gone to war, and they've gone to war to defend themselves or to expand their belief system. So in this rant, you cannot have, well, you can have a civilization without a fighting force, but it will not endure. Now, it may be able, if it's prosperous and so forth, it could be able to buy off others for a while, but that always comes to an end. So this idea that we can continue to have this wonderful society that we live in without fighters is a stupid idea, and it won't allow us to exist for long. Well, we can maybe buy our way out for a while, but eventually the barbarians get here, or they grow up here, and everything just goes away, and we have to start all over again. And I won't be here long enough to probably see all that, but anyway, think about that, all of you, and consider the ramifications of not being able to fight for what you believe in. Y'all have a good day.